I sort of mentioned this on my Twitter, but this is probably the first of two pretty big patches. This patch, we're trying to mostly focus on bringing things that haven't really had a chance to shine yet up in power. So this is going to be champions and traits that have been underperforming. And then also some augment balance focus, and then some item balance you're going to see a little bit. So a lot to dive into here, about 20 slides to get through.
20? Oh my God.
In and get talking about it. So here we go. All right, on the trait side, and yes, that says 1 of 3. Arcana emblem. So the emblem has definitely led to a situation where if you can get an Arcana emblem in certain games and you have like 6 or 7 emblems, it gets out of control and it gets crazy. And if you have like 3 or 4 emblems, you know, a normal amount, it's not very good. And so what we're doing is we're buffing the baseline, but nerfing the cap. So you'll still be able to achieve some big numbers like 60% or something like that, but a little less 130% that you've seen before.
Yeah, that was kind of dumb.
But also it should be more of an option now when you have 3 or 4. So a little bit there to help.
I don't know if you guys ever seen it, but trade tracker with flexible, you get like a training dummy, and then all of a sudden you just hover over it and it's like 115 damage amp out of nowhere. Yeah, that was pretty dumb. So I'm glad they're nerfing that. And this actually ends up nerfing some augments as well, like flexible and trade tracker, which is good.
Speaking of Arcana, Hecarim is also getting more AD. So if you want to go vertical Arcana, you can, and you're going to get more AD for your team.
Makes sense.
So Arcana multi-strikers can be pretty good there.
Multi-striker.
Hopefully it makes Xerath pretty good as well. And then the true damage per 3 charms. This is definitely one of the more popular ones in the end game, being nerfed at 4 and 5 by 1%.
5 to 6.
Honestly, it's still probably too good, but we're going light touch, 1 patch at a time. I don't...
That's not really a light touch. It's just funny that just like all you get for adding another Arcana unit is 1%. This will make it feel like 4 Arcana is like not worth it at all, and you probably just stay at 3. But maybe that extra 1% tick is going to be worth. Who knows?
Don't expect people to not pick the Xerath one. It's really good. So yeah. Bastion 6 and 8, still kind of underperforming compared to some of our other verticals.
Again,
Bastion 6, very small buff, 5 more armor and MR. Bastion 8, 20 more armor and MR. So
if they don't nerf Witchy Wallop and Sweet Tooth and high horsepower, there's actually a decent chance that vertical Bastion ends up being the best way to play the hero augment. Let's say they nerf Ari and they nerf like all these other like backliners like Kog'Maw, etc. There's already variations of 6 Bastion. If you can get to 8 Bastion and you get raid boss, it's going to be kind of crazy.
Pretty big change there.
How's that?
Yep. So cool. Chrono's in a really kind of not great spot right now, where you play Chrono 2 a lot because Chrono 2 is worth it, because you get that heal for free for your team. But Chrono 4 not so much. So Chrono 4 gets the time freeze an extra half second longer.
That's big.
10 more AP, and then this should say 6-piece AP bonus. The 6-piece AS bonus, excuse me, is going to go up to 80%. So you'll get some more attack speed if you're running 6 Chrono. So
okay, well, that's a lot of love, and this should make it a lot. Like half a second stun is a huge deal, because that might be an entire another cast from Karma or other units like Camille. So this should be a lot better now. Chrono should be back on the menu. Like at least this is a huge buff.
Eldridge is another vertical that really is kind of underperforming. So Eldridge is just going to get a buff across the board, especially to its scaling.
Yep.
AP per star level is going to go up, so it'll get more AP as time goes on. And then 7 Eldridge is going to have a higher base HP. Now remember, that's the base HP that scales with star level. So overall, small buff to Eldridge. I don't think this is going to make Eldridge, the dominating comp or anything. Although who knows, maybe it'll beat 8 Witchcraft randomly. You never know. Honeymancy. Honeymancy is another trait that I've already kind of announced is probably getting a slight rework in the next patch. But for now, we do want to buff it so it could at least be
9
a playable line. So the 5-piece is going to get an extra B. The 7-piece is going to get 2 extra Bs. So beware. Hopefully it won't be a problem. And then Hunter. Hunter is in a pretty good spot here, but 6 Hunter, not really being played a whole lot. So some more AD at 6, and more AD on takedown at 4 and 6. So yeah.
I mean, overall, like these are the things that definitely need to get buffed. Chrono's underperforming. Eldridge is underperforming by a lot. I mean, he says like it's underperforming, but I think that really undersells it. 7 Eldridge is terrible. It's averaging a 5. And it's pretty hard to really understate how bad something has to be to average a 5 with like a 28 to 30% top 4 rate. So Desperate need of a buff. These are fine changes, especially if they're going to nerf like the other reroll comps, and this is fine too. No one plays 600.
Continuing on. Fairy. Fairy is definitely a trait that has been underperforming a bit here, and we're going to be mostly focused on 6 Fairy. 6 Fairy vertical just really isn't that impressive. So you're going to get 5% more damage amp on your crown. You're also going to get 100 health on your armor, 10 more armor and MR on your armor, so it's going to make your 6 Fairy Recons really, really tanky. And then if you hit 9 Fairy, there's this really weird mechanic on 9 Fairy where if you get 25 stacks on your Monarch crown, you get like a bunch of health and Omnivamp and 15% whole damage amp. Woo! That's not very exciting. So 9 Fairy needed some love here.
Yeah.
9 Fairy.
That's a lot of damage amp.
50% damage amp. So you get that Callista, you get up to that 25 stacks. It's going to hit really, really hard. Bam. And we've seen 9 Fairy on PvE be a little bit better at least, so hopefully this helps.
A little bit better?
Incanter, the trait that right now has 3 out of 4 of the worst champs in the game. It's pretty rough. Ziggs, Syndra, and Cassiopeia all kind of struggling a bit.
Yep.
If you can run 4 Incanter, you're going to get 10 more AP, as well as some other buffs later.
Okay. 30 AP is kind of nice, but I don't know if that's going to change anything meaningfully. Because the problem is the unit quality itself, so we're going to have to see if the units actually get buffed. Like, the problem, yeah, you get 10 more AP on your team, but you're still playing Ziggs, Cassio, Syndra.
Mage. 7 and 9 Mage here. 7 should be a green number. 7 and 9 Mage going to be buffed a little bit. 9 Mage probably needs a bigger adjustment here. Who knows? Maybe we'll even make it 10 Mage. But 9 Mage, certainly not as exciting as we want. But for now, certainly needs to be more powerful. So
one thing to keep in mind is that some of these things can get made as an emblem in the future. So this is like a preemptive patch of like trying to get the power level before... Because you can make a Mage emblem starting not this next patch, but the patch after. So in 2.5 weeks from now... you're going to start to be able to make Mage. So just keep that in mind as we look at some of these classes.
So power is going to go up. Multi-Striker. Multi-Striker 3, really good trait. Multi-Striker 7, pretty good trait.
Extremely good if you get the reroll.
Multi-Striker 5, a really awkward in-between that isn't very good. What we're going to do is just ease that curve a little bit. So 5 Multi-Striker will be a little bit better to play with 5% more chance to proc. Portal.
Hard to understand how
Portal
good
has definitely been probably one of the easier to play verticals, and it's in a good spot. The problem is you're at the mercy of the bomb RNG. When you hit bombs, you typically win fights. When you hit other things, you typically don't.
Yes.
So at 6 and 8, we're going to nerf the bomb damage as base. Now remember, this scales with star level.
Thank you.
So you can see the bomb damage base going down at 8 pretty substantially. But in exchange... You'll notice, like, the flag, for example, wasn't really scaling at 6 and 8. So now, if you get, the flag out of an 8 portal, it'll actually be more attack speed for your team.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the snacks. The snacks will actually heal a bit more. So, basically, the general read here is it should be a little bit close to the same, but less if you don't get bomb, you lose. So that's kind of the hope here, is it's not really meant to be a big nerf. It's meant to be a... levering out here.
Side grade.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, he's not wrong. I don't know if you guys have ever seen like the bomb come down and hit your back line, especially if you're playing stuff like Kog'Maw where you have like units adjacent to each other, but it can just swing the fight completely. They have Rise same side as you. Bomb comes, hits your units to like a third of your health. Like you lose like a third to a half of your health on your units, and then you instantly just like get your backline sniped in like 2 shots. Also, I swear Fairy is not bad. It was tech that China had a patch ago. It's not common this patch because no one's playing vertical anything besides Portal, but I'm just telling you, I think Fairy already might be kind of good.
It's not really meant to be a big nerf.
Okay, not good, but
levering out here.
Fairy's underrated, I think.
And then Pyro. Pyro is in a weird spot right now that we're not super thrilled with, which is that all the power is in the Pyro champions, but it's got this cool Cinder stacking mechanic, and if you stack 100 Cinders, you get 25% attack speed. Woo! Not very exciting. So we wanted to bring the power down of the trait a little bit so that we could put more in that Cinder stacking fantasy. So the Cinders are getting a buff, which is a buff to the team, a buff to Splash Pyro. But in exchange, 2 and 4 Pyro is getting a little bit less attack speed. 6 as well, you can see is going from 60 to 55. And then the execute threshold is going from 12 to 10. So, again, get lots of Pyro Cinders, have fun.
This makes me feel a little bit more like Dryad. It feels like you kind of want to snowball and stack Pyro, and this makes the splashability of Pyro worse in the mid and late game. So like if you end up like, oh, I'm gonna throw a Pyro on because the execute threshold is worse, and like it just feels. So what this ends up happening is like if you commit Pyro early, it's much better. Kind of like Dryad stacking from the previous set, and it ends up it might make this worse as a flex option. I'm not sure if I like that.
Shapeshifter. This trait is basically non-existent as a vertical, so it's getting more health. Cool. Big health bars are good. Sugarcraft.
Oh wait,
Sugarcraft
this is actually kind of potentially good for like this might like Lease reroll already kind of plays like a good tempo curve and shows you the power of 4 to 6 Shapeshifter. This is very good.
Really fun trait. I think this one landed really well. The problem is it's basically unplayable without an emblem, because with an emblem you can get to 6 Sugarcraft and you can hit some of those high caps. But if you try to play 2 or 4 early, it's kind of garbo. So we're putting a lot more combat power in 2, a little more in 3, and a little bit more, 2, 4, 6. So the combat power is going up.
Delaying the cash out.
In exchange, some of the higher end rewards are going to be a little harder to hit.
Okay.
You can see the max going from 2,200 to 2,300. But again, we want you to like actually feel good about putting 2 Sugarcraft in and actually feel like it gives you some stats. So now it will. Going from 12 base AD and AP to 20 is a very big buff. So
yes,
2 Sugarcraft should actually be pretty good.
Yeah.
And then the last
Agreed.
trait here, Vanguard. Vanguard, if you run 6, that means you're running some pretty weak units here. So you're going to get an extra 5% durability while shielded. So should open up some 6 Vanguard lines. We're pretty happy with where 4 and 2 are right now, but 6 just gets a little bit tankier.
For the most part, like I think Pyro's the biggest surprise here. I actually think maybe I'm not necessarily right here, but I think Shapeshifter was fine. I don't think they needed to buff hits. This is a pretty sizable buff. You might think it's just like 1 and 3%, but Shapeshifters have a ton of HP, and it's one of those threshold things. Like if Nico ends up casting again, she stays alive for potentially another cast. Same thing with Swain, so on and so forth, and Nasus, as you guys know. So it's entirely possible that Shapeshifters now are a really good frontline. And they did technically nerf like Pyro, so like they're not, if they actually like straight up buff Pyro and Shapeshifter, that probably would have been a bad choice. So that's good. Sugarcraft I think is fine. It's hard to understand exactly how good this is, outside of the fact that base AD and AP is good. And 6 Vanguard, can't really complain about that.
All right. One cost.
Just get triple, yeah.
Jace.
That 5 is 15%.
Pretty light buff here,
call.
but Jace secretly is actually a pretty good unit. Can be a pretty good item carrier in the early game. Didn't want to buff Portal too much. He's also getting the Shapeshifter buff, so Jace is going to get 10% more base damage. He'll hit harder. Cool.
Wait, they're buffing the Namzi reroll.
Namzi.
Twitch Namzi Jace.
Spell
Wait, what?
should hit hard. The whole point of Namzi is like,
hold on a second.
I attack, and then I breathe this fire spell that should like decimate
they're buffing
you
all
the
units.
So it's getting a pretty substantial buff here. From what I've seen, though, it's actually not that insane on PBE. But now it'll at least, maybe kind of kill something. So, cool. Namzi gets a buff. Soraka gets a very tiny spell damage buff, only 5 base, very tiny. The bigger buff here is actually the spell healing.
Yeah,
the spell healing
nice.
actually can do some stuff now.
Agreed.
What I'll say is this is one of the changes that actually has me a tiny bit nervous.
Yeah.
Soraka plus Vex Mage early can be really tough to deal with if you don't have any anti-heal.
Blitzcrank.
So don't underestimate Soraka anymore. That healing is actually pretty substantial.
Blitzcrank already is unkillable as a 2-star 1 cost in the early game. You put a Mogul's Mail. I think I heard that they're nerfing it, but you put like 2 items on Blitzcrank, and then if you just get any kind of sustain, Blitzcrank will never die. If you somehow get like if Soraka ends up being good and you end up like playing her, that Blitzcrank will just like you'll 4-0 everybody in stage 2.
Twitch also gets an AD buff, so now the Twitch Namzi opener shouldn't be a meme. You should be able to run like Twitch Namzi plus Warwick plus something else.
Dude, this
and maybe actually
might be
do some
so
damage
good
and
now.
kill something.
Oh my god!
Again, it still doesn't feel S tier or anything, but now it won't be a meme.
Okay, try Upgraded Adventure with Jace, Namzi, Twitch plus Elise, or if you get like Shyvana through something like that. It's actually not even that bad. It's just it's very niche, and now that actually might be the best way to play it if they nerf the Zoe reroll.
And then Ziggs, kind of the worst champion in the set right now, is getting 10 off his mana. Does this make him S tier? Not from what I've seen. Does it make it playable? Yeah, maybe. So
double
if you get an early
adaptive
Ziggs now with some mana items,
double adaptive
Ziggs
Honey
in.
Mancy Ziggs.
He's actually really good at like sniping backline with his bombs. So if you get some lucky bombs, cool, but should make Ziggs a little playable.
Little playable. 40's a big deal.
I love true damage. I love Ahri. They're great. Very slight nerf to Ahri here. It's actually a pretty light nerf. She got away with a very light tap here. 5 off the base, 5 off the true damage. Yeah, she probably needs some more work. And to be honest, we've got 14-18 coming up here. She's probably due for some bigger changes. Her spell shape is just so odd.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing about Ahri isn't it even just like it even isn't just like the damage, but like she's not satisfying to play. So when he's talking about spell shape, he's talking about like the cast and like the visual aspect of Ahri doesn't feel very good. So yeah, she's strong, but like I don't even feel like Ahri players are like, yes, I love Ahri. They're just like playing Ahri for the LP.
Akali is also getting a nerf here. Right now, Akali is very feast or famine. If she gets on your backline and 2-shots them, feels terrible.
Yep.
If she doesn't, she does nothing. So lowering that damage just a little bit here. So, yep. Cassiopeia, this is the other Incanter buff here. So she's going to get higher base attack speed, meaning that when she's itemless, it won't be quite as bad. I think this makes Cassiopeia a lot better.
Yes,
Consider
it does.
Cassiopeia if you have some Ginsus lying around.
The higher the base speed, the faster you're gonna stack Rage Blade, which snowballs. So basically, she's just like she already starts with like a Rage Blade stack and change. So that's good.
Shyvana kind of struggling a bit right now. Gets 5 more armor and MR, a little more base AP. Crown Guard BT Shyvana should be a powerful carry. If it's not, we'll need to buff her more. But again, she also got the Shapeshifter buff. So Shyvana should be pretty cool.
I love Shyvana.
And then yes, Syndra buffs. I'm sure everyone from
they
the
buffed
first patch
Shyvana
is
too.
sort of cringing right now and going, "Oh
They
God,
buffed
what are they
Syndra.
doing?" But Syndra right now is pretty close to unplayable. Even from the perfect spots, she's like a good third if you're lucky. So she's getting a very, very tiny buff here.
Yeah, it's true. It's only 5%
pretty much one of the
3-star
buffs we could have given her.
Yeah.
But hopefully nudging her back into an okay spot.
For AoE.
All right, 3 costs. Hecarim, this is probably one of the bigger changes, though from what I've seen, doesn't actually move the needle too much. But Hecarim is going to get more HP, lower mana so that he can get back to cleaving quicker. His charge AD so that when he charges will actually feel good and works with the AD items.
What the heck?
Originally, if you play this on live, by the way, if you have 3 days left on live, the AP ratio was really high on this charge in the hopes that there'd be a meme AP build. If anyone, cough cough Leduc, wants to try to make AP Hecarim 3 work, let me know. But otherwise, it's going to work with AD.
I never knew
like
that.
It's supposed to. And then the cleave AD is going to go up.
So APAC on the launch patch, one thing that they did was back when we were playing Kassadin reroll and things like that as one of the main things, Hecarim was actually quite good in those setups. So just keep an eye out for this. I mean, this sounds great. Like it's hard for me to imagine that this is not going to be that big of a buff.
All right, Jinx. Jinx has a pretty bad bug on live right now, where her spell does true damage that is supposed to scale with AD.
Yeah, it doesn't.
The problem is it doesn't.
Yep.
If you get like, I don't know, say a bunch of AD from your Hunter trait or your Sugarcraft trait, it doesn't make your spell any better.
Yep.
Which would be a shame. I mean, especially if she had 2 traits that gave her high amounts of AD.
Yep, like the buffs.
That's why if you ever put things like IE or Deathblade on her, not so good. Attack speed, though, pretty good. So we fixed that bug. Well, obviously, to compensate, though, she had to lose some other stats. So the spell's going to do a little bit less true damage, a little less attack speed, a little less AD. It looks like a nerf, but the reality is she actually benefits from her traits now. So probably actually a pretty substantial buff. But yeah, so that's fixed.
There's a possibility that this ends up being, like Jinx ends up being super good. Who knows?
Swain, kind of underperforming as a tank.
Green sentence.
So he's going to get more armor and MR, more HP on first cast, more HP on subsequent casts. And again, with the Shapeshifter buff, that should help Swain be pretty good.
Okay.
That being said, Swain also kind of does a lot of damage when he does get going. So we are nerfing the damage of Swain a bit. He's supposed to be a tank, not
Dude, they're
a
buffing
carry.
every Shapeshifter.
Also, I just want to call out that of all the things I've gotten wrong, Swain was definitely one I got wrong. I thought Swain was going to be very strong. We didn't nerf him at all. He ended up being very weak. So Swain needed some love. All right.
Okay, hold on a second. They're buffing Jace, Shyvana, Swain, and they buff 4 and 6 shapeshifters, and they buff their backline like Namzi Twitch. Is that not just the best opener in the game right now? And then like you just basically like you win streak super easily, and your opponents can't kill you. And because of the way Swain works, is like he just becomes unkillable, and then you just get 6-0'd every single fight in stage 3.
Veigar and Vex are in a weird spot, and if there was anything that got A-patched, it's probably something here. Veigar and Vex are the most feast or famine comp in the game right now.
Yeah.
If you get them going, right? If you've got the 3-star Veigar with exact items in a good spot and the 3-star Vex, it has the highest cap in the game. It's probably the highest cap comp right now if you can pull it off. The problem that we're trying to address here is that have you ever tried to play a Veigar 2 in like stage 2 and 3? It doesn't do anything. He doesn't exist. The champ may as well be a dummy. Same with Vex. Vex 1 and 2, not really that great.
So much hate for
So
Veigar.
what we were doing here was trying to ease them into that curve. But that being said, I do think these are a little light. And so we're going to take a look at that. But something we've got our eye on. But again, the goal here was like Veigar on, 2-1 shouldn't be a bait to put on your board. All right. Continuing on with 3 costs.
They buffed Nico as well.
Very light change here. Mordekaiser 2,
man.
not very, like Mordekaiser 1, Mordekaiser 2.
Jeez.
Mordekaiser 3 fully capped, really hard to deal with. So buff to Mordekaiser 1, nerf to Mordekaiser 3. Very tiny changes here.
Mord 3 is insane.
Nico, this is a
quick.
change that basically makes Nico 1 and 2 better, and Nico 3 a tiny bit worse.
I mean, that's fine. We're not
But again,
Nico.
kind of like the Vex and Veigar, the cap of Nico 3 was too good, while Nico 1 and 2 were garbage. Putting on a little bit of base healing will make Nico 1 a lot better. Combined with the Shapeshifter buff should help. And then Shen 2 and 3 also get a bit of a durability buff here, so that should help Shen.
Is Nico 2 actually that bad? I just feel like the meta is like shifts it away from her traits and her tree. So like I don't even feel like Nico 2 is that bad. Like I don't know if you guys have played Callista, but like Nico 2 is actually kind of clutch sometimes. It's like because you can't always rely on Nasus and you can't hit Nasus, so sometimes you just have to like kind of play some makeshift stuff. And Nico's ends up being one of those staples. I feel like she's kind of decent already.
4 costs. Gwen was in a very weird spot. Probably one of
I heard about
the
this change.
weirdest 4 costs. Like she saw a lot of play because she was
2-to-1
Sugarcraft
cast.
and she's a warrior, and those are good traits. But she didn't really do much by herself. And she had this whole mechanic where every 2 casts she would gain a little bit of damage, but it wasn't very much damage. So we wanted to fix it so that she can cast a lot more and actually have this stacking fantasy.
Blue buff
So now
Gwen.
she's a 30 mana champion. And now every time she casts, she gains a stip stack. So, she'll be scaling every single cast. That being said,
That's fun.
Probably couldn't ship that with the base numbers. So the base numbers are going down a little bit. This is meant to be a buff. So let's be clear here. This should be a buff. Gwen should actually be playable. And if I have one other thing I'm a little nervous on with this patch, it's the Gwen Fiora Katarina combo now being really, really good. That Gwen's actually a pretty good unit.
Yeah.
But Gwen should actually feel like a 4 cost. Yay! That's the point.
Because she feels like a 2 cost.
Nami's in a great spot here. The problem is right now most people are using Nami as a CC bot, which isn't great. If you want to invest in Nami as a carry, you should feel good about that. So we're giving her some more damage on the bubble so that Nami might actually kill a tank someday. So
that's true. That is true. But
Nasus, with all those shapeshifter buffs and pyro changes and stuff like that, probably going to be a little popular. So going to steal a little bit less health.
A little bit.
So small nerf to Nasus here. Rise. I have this listed not as a buff or nerf on purpose because you could interpret this one how you want. Rise will do the same amount of damage. It will just be spread amongst less targets. Now, what that means is he'll be less likely to randomly snipe backline.
Yeah.
But
he'll
be more likely to focus fire down a tank and kill them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which can be very valuable. So, determine it how you want, but buff, nerf, it's a change. But we really didn't like him sniping random backlines was the big thing here.
So, I just looked it up to make sure I wasn't going crazy, but Nasus steals health from 4 enemies. And so he's losing, like, at 2-star, he's losing 120 HP times 4. That's a 480 HP nerf, and that's a huge deal because of a lot of different ways you multiply Nasus effectiveness. So yeah, Nasus got cooked, and they also they took down Nasus, and which is good. They're not just like 5-way buffing shapeshifters, but
and then Taric gets this massive buff where his 3-star ability will now actually go an extra hex radius. So 3-star Taric might actually kill other things than the one tank with no items next to him. So Taric 3 buff.
Okay,
cool.
I don't know that.
All right, 5 costs. 5 costs right now feel like the thing that you add to your comp that your comp is already done, but they don't really shine themselves, and so you're going to see some 5 cost buffs here.
Okay.
Briar is getting a lot of buffs.
Wow,
an extra
that's
15% on Transform. Her Bite, which is the spell she does after Transform, is going to do more AD. You're going to get more damage the lower you are in Ravenous. So now if you're at 1 health, instead of getting close to 60% damage amp, you're going to get 80% damage amp.
Wow.
And you're going to get another 30 health every time you feed.
Wow.
So Briar's getting some pretty big buffs
Holy
here.
shit. They buffed another shapeshifter.
Makes her better. I don't know if she's like S tier or anything, but she's good, which good for a 5 cost. Sweet.
Okay, doesn't this make shapeshifter's capstone really high? And like, so if you're already playing like a tempo shapeshifter, you hit Briar on 7, it's GG.
Milio, this is probably the biggest buff. Milio's going to get 10 off his mana cost.
You have a link to the video? Yeah, I do.
More spell damage.
Thanks for asking.
And Milio will actually crank out some damage, which is good. If I was the most wrong about Swain, by the way, Challenger players were the most wrong about Milio.
True.
There was worry he was going to be on every board and dominate the game. Milio is the worst 5 cost by a significant margin. He needs these buffs. So hopefully this makes Milio better. Morgana, same thing. Morgana's going to get a little bit more base damage, and she'll get more true damage threshold. So if the enemy is below 33% health instead of 25, she'll do true damage. This is nice to hopefully help her get kills, to hopefully help her bat-nap people and get extra units. So
wait, didn't Warthog just
like...
finish complaining about true damage? Now we're buffing the true damage, and now Morgana is going to be dealing more damage. They're also buffing, just as a small thing too, they're buffing a lot of aspects of like the Switchcraft line as well. They're buffing a lot of like the early AP that builds into it, and Nico and other things. So, and
finally Xerath. Xerath was actually the second worst 5 cost, despite giving you all sorts of charms.
I think Xerath kind of sucked.
We're buffing a lot of his charms, which you'll see later, and in addition, he'll deal 10% more damage.
Charms?
So, yeah, 5 cost should feel like 5 cost.
I'm getting more dogged again.
Sweet.
Hey, Random Mom, thank you.
Let's hope they do well. Okay, items. What you're going to see here is we're going to talk about the items here, and this is a lot of red. We are taking a lot of the best items in the game right now, and we're lowering their base stats a little bit here. The worst items are not getting changed, but basically this is us trying to make champions a little less item reliant, and a little less combat pacing of insanity here. So that if you have slightly worse items, you're not as at big of a deficit.
Lowering power
This
creep.
is us essentially trying to balance the items a little bit better.
All the base
but
stats.
Trying to make sure that best in slot versus worst in slot isn't as big a difference. So for example, you don't see Jeweled Gauntlet and IE on here. They're not getting nerfed.
Yeah.
But that's also because if you listen to challengers, they'll be like, those items are unbuildable. Well, they're going to be more powerful compared to the other items now.
True.
So
they're buffing
these are
JG.
a lot of the S tier items getting their power lowered.
Mort wants China to win the world championship again. They're indirectly buffing JG. My God.
Adaptive Helm, 5 less AD and AP. Bloodthirster, 5 less AD and AP. Blue Buff, 5 less AD and AP. Crown Guard, less shield value. Deathblade, less AD. Gargoyle, 5 less armor and MR. Giant Slayer is the one exception, by the way, here. Giant Slayer, we're actually just making it more of a universal item.
Oh, thank God.
So it'll have the equal amount of AD and AP. This isn't meant to be a nerf. This is just...
That's good. That's good.
Giant Slayer works on both type of units now.
That's good.
Chad is saying all items unbuildable now. Perfect. Yeah, just don't build items. It's a good strategy. Ginsu's 5 less attack speed. Ionic Spark, 50 less health.
Man, I'm getting more dogged
5%
again.
less attack speed. Nashers, 5 less AP and 5 less attack speed on proc. Rabadon's 5 less damage amp. Red Buff, 5 less attack speed. Shiv, 5 less attack speed. Steadfast Heart, 50 less health. And Starrett's Gauge, 50 less health.
Okay, so this is a good change because part of the difficulty of playing AP, even though AP is so good right now, it has to do with, one, the base power of these items, but also the sword is a really problematic component to use. And equalizing AD and AP for Giant Slayer makes it more item versatile again, so it doesn't feel like you're stuck with 2 swords. You're just really, really sad. And then also by nerfing other things, they like, yeah, it's actually good. They're just like bringing down the base power level. The thing that's like kind of surprising to me is like some of these other, like, I don't think Steadfast Heart is like particularly really good of an item. Like some of these items are actually kind of mid. Like Stairs Gauge also becomes kind of a worse tank item. So in some ways they're like buffing sword but nerfing it, because sometimes you can make Stairs Gauge as like an impromptu tank item. But I understand they're just trying to bring down the general baseline power level. So yeah, it's like maybe that ends up being kind of neutral and like everything's the same, but this is like a big deal. This shakes up like a lot of things, and that actually might make anything from itemizing your carries completely different next patch because of like the virtue of all these items changing. Remember how they removed the stats on Radiant, Morello, and Red Buff, and that went from the best Radiant items in the game to the worst just by taking away some base stats? So that ends up like basically what I'm gonna say. Well, basically, you guys better check out TFT Academy tier list in like a few days after the patch, because itemization might entirely change. It's possible. It also could stay exactly the same, but just saying.
Radiant items, similar thing. The top of the best Radiant items kind of needed the same thing here. So you're going to see some changes here. Adaptive Helm.
Wait, they buffed BT.
20 less armor and MR in the front line.
Isn't that item really
15 less AP in the back line. Bloodthirster. This is a change, by the way, because it was weird how normal Bloodthirster and normal Gunblade had the same AD and AP, meant for them to be flexible items. Then you'd play Radiant Bloodthirster, and for some reason it had more AD. Or you'd play Radiant Gunblade, and it had more AP, which was weird. So now Bloodthirster and Gunblade will have the same AD and AP like their normal counterparts.
Okay.
Radiant Blue Buff, 10 AD and AP nerf. Bramble Vest, 20 armor nerf. Crown Guard nerf, less HP and AP on Crown Guard. Giant Slayer, bit of a nerf to the AD. Guard Breaker, bit of a nerf to the attack speed and damage amp. Hand of Justice, bit of a nerf. Ionic Spark, Jeweled Gauntlet, Nashers, and Rabadon's Death Cap all nerfed. The one that got buffed was Static Shiv. Static Shiv is buffed, so I expect to see 3 Radiant Static Shivs in every Challenger video from now on. If not, clearly something has gone wrong. But yeah. So again, trying to get Radiant items all to be pretty close to each other.
Okay, one thing that I have to just tell you guys, we talked about this on the podcast with Dirso, and actually this caught Dirso buff guard, but you cannot evaluate Radiant items in a vacuum, because it'll tell you that Bulwark Oath is the best Radiant item in the game alongside Radiant Sunfire, but that is not true. If you filter out 10 Portal, which gives Radiant items, it tells you a completely different story of what are the best items, Radiant items. Bulwark Oath becomes entirely mid. And that's because if you look at Bulwark's Earth, guess what? It's like the best item ever on Galio. If you look at like the units that it combines with, it's like an insane stat line on Galio. If you look at it, I remember looking at this and I was like, what? Minus is Galio like the nuts with it? But that's because you have 10 Portal. I don't know about some of these Radiant item nerfs, but like we'll see. Like I think Radiant Bramble's already kind of bad, but maybe.
All support items base HP is lowered by 100. This is mostly targeted at nerfing just support items in general, but also the support golems. I still think they'll be good. They'll just have 100 less health. It's not a big deal. Knight's Vow is excluded. Knight's Vow is already at 50 health.
Man, I'm getting more dogged again.
And then on the artifact side, some buffs to the artifacts.
Oh, the nerfing on support augments.
Corrupted Vamp Scepter gets another 10 AD. It's going to make Warwick reroll with that item just unbeatable, so make sure you play that. Fishbones get 5% more AD and attack speed. Gold Collector kind of needed a buff here, so 10% more AD. Mogul's Mail gets 100 HP nerf.
A lot.
Honestly, Mogul's Mail still probably a little too good, but it's a good start. It's a light nerf. And then Prowler's Claw definitely gets the biggest buff here. It's going to get 10% more AD and another 20% crit chance. It's going to make Prowler's Claw give you a lot of crits here. So hopefully this makes Prowler's Claw actually something you're excited to build.
50 AD. That's a lot of AD that it's giving you, and this probably has to be really good on Olaf now. That's my predict. That like this probably is like products called Olaf. Gold Collector sounds just really good. Like now that Jinx might scale off of it, it could be really good on Jinx. Varus could be another good user of it, although I guess he's Pyro, so that doesn't necessarily work well together. But like 80 units that can really benefit off of Gold Collector, it just sounds a lot better.
All right, augments. On the silver side,
I just got the augments.
AFK gets 2 more gold. Personally, I got to say, I'm excited about this. AFK is literally my favorite silver augment, but it's actually underperforming slightly, so plus 2 gold. Yes. Combat bandages gets a small buff here.
Sure.
That being said, we think we now are aware of a bug that has not been fixed with combat bandages, so my advice to you, if you're watching this, is for now,
don't pick it.
Don't pick combat bandages till we fix the bug.
Oh, God.
But we buffed it thinking that was the issue. Think we found a bug. Might need to be fixed.
The stats on it always look so bad.
Exiles gets a small nerf. That augment's been great.
Yeah.
Item ladder temporarily disabled while we fix a bug. Once we fix the bug, hopefully it'll be back. Keepers gets nerfed as well.
Makes sense.
Placebo. This is actually going to change the game. If you think we are irresponsible
Holy shit,
with
they're
balance,
doubling it.
We are taking an augment and doubling its power.
Oh my
This is probably the
God.
most irresponsible change we've ever put into a patch. But the fact that we're doubling an augment's power is ludicrous. So
they doubled its power, and now you get all this gold and double the combat power. Placebo is a combat. Someone in chat the other day was telling me that placebo is actually a combat augment, and they were like half trolling, but now they're not even trolling anymore. It's actually like 2%.
It might get out of control, but there it is. Placebo doubling in power. And then pumping up gives an extra 2% initial attack speed. So gold augments, a golden quest. So this is meant to be a nerf, but the way it works is instead of giving 3 items, it will give 1 item and 1 artifact. So we went through and changed the tables, which legendary gets which items, but it will now be 1 item and 1 artifact.
Is that even potentially
meant
better?
To be a nerf, but there is this like tiny part in our brain where it's like, well, now they have an empty item slot and you can give them something even better. And so we'll keep an eye on it, but this is meant to be a nerf to Golden Quest. Ascension can no longer appear on 2-1. It's pretty bad on 2-1 and gets a damage buff. Avenge the Fallen gets a little bit more bonus stats. Cauterize. This is the Pyro augment. Right now, it could only appear on 3-2 on live. We're now letting it appear on 2-1. It's pretty fun because it gives you the Akali and the Shen right away, so you can get started on building up those Pyro Cinders.
That's a lot.
Yeah, those are more fun.
This actually might be a good augment on 2-1 now. We'll see.
Clockwork Accelerator, another 50% buff here. Clockwork Accelerator will give you 9% per 3 seconds.
Wow.
Instead of 6%. Honestly, it still felt a little weak, but hopefully that makes this augment close to playable. Combat Bandages, same thing. It's a buff, but don't play it until I tell you. It's probably bugged. Deja Vu Plus, and you're going to see this with the other pluses as well. Instead of getting a 2-star Galio, you're only going to get 2 Galios, so it won't quite accelerate you as much.
Wait, they're nerfing Deja Vu.
All right, Dragon Spirit. This was an augment that got nerfed with the Dragon Claw nerf, and then also had some code get changed that caused it to not read the right stuff. So we decided to just rework it and be done with it. So Dragon Spirit now gives you a Dragon's Claw, and champions who are equipped with the Dragon's Claw now gain 100 HP and 10% durability.
Okay.
So if you want a really strong frontline, Dragon Spirit makes them really good. I know the Jax 3 I ran with this today seemed really, really good with it. So
yeah, that's actually pretty good.
Should be a simpler to use augment, a little easier.
More boring, though.
So there you go.
More boring.
Flexible. This augment continues to get nerf after nerf after nerf to the point where we probably need to do something more drastic with it. But now the HP per emblem will drop down from 25 to 10.
Yeah.
Hunting Frenzy. This rework worked out really well. It's made hunters quite good.
Huge nerf.
The execute threshold is going down to 10%.
This is a big nerf
Keepers
as well.
2, very small nerf here to 230.
Yeah.
Long Distance Pals, very small buff to 22%.
Removing
And
this?
Metabolic Accelerator, unfortunately without a high econ like risk-reward trait like Fortune, this augment's really bad. There's just not really a reason to take it.
Fun.
It's not like you
Get
can
to run
take
around.
Fortune then this. That doesn't work. So the augment is being removed for now.
Okay, this is a big nerf, but Flexible's win rate is so high. Like, I've heard some suggestions to make it prismatic, and then maybe like give it some compensation buffs. I think that makes more sense. Flexible feels like something that could be at prismatic level. It's just that it just gives you so much power for gold, and part of what makes Flexible like insane is if you ever get in the spot where you can like reforge all your bad ones in one go because you get access to so many reforgers in the set, as well as pick up any extra ones. It's just ridiculous. It wouldn't surprise me if Flexible is still really good, just like he said. Like, maybe at this point, they even just give you any HP for emblem, and then maybe Flexible will be balanced. But yeah, they also are nerfing Arcana, so maybe that combination ends up making it fine.
Really bad. There's just not really a reason to take it. It's not like you can take Fortune then this. That doesn't work. So the augment is being removed for now.
Sag. 07.
Molten Caramel Plus, like we said, instead of a 2-star Rumble, gain 2 Rumbles. Potions
they're nerfing all the
201 is
pluses.
going to be a small buff to Witchcraft. Pumping up 2, a little more base AS. Spellblades. This augment obviously doing very well because it's good on the Ari Zoe comp, but also even outside the Ari Zoe comp, little good, so nerfing the damage from that.
It was 170,
Plus,
now
we already
120.
talked about this. Three's Company, another wild change here, shows how inflation is getting out of control in TFT.
Holy cow.
It used to be 4 3 costs, but since you can't really fish for like fortune units with it, it's kind of weak. So now it'll be 5 3 costs. 5 3 costs. It's wild.
God.
And yes, you can get repeats. So yes, it is possible to take this augment, open it up, and have a 2-star Mordekaiser. That is possible. All right, Unleash the Beast right now. So the text has been changed. It says 30% attack speed, but 60%. But that's because the reality was it was bugged and it was always giving 60%. And so this actually doesn't change the augment at all. The augment works exactly the same. The only thing that changed is the text. So cool. And then finally, worth the wait, we're lowering the delay one more. That being said, we have some ideas to make this augment a little bit more fun, and it was kind of underperforming because a lot of the 1 costs were in a bad spot. Some of the 1 costs are in a better spot now, so hopefully this augment ends up being as fun as we think it can be. Prismatic augments. Anger issues. This augment is very fun and very bad, so have 5 more armor and MR. That'll change everything.
I'm going to throw out a prediction here. I'm going to go on a limb. Anger issues on Hecarim 3 on the new patch with multi-strikers. It doesn't even sound that bad. Triple Rageblade, backline Callista, triple Rageblade Hecarim, and then just kind of like, yeah, like it doesn't even sound that bad.
Blossoming Lotus gets a buff, another 2% crit chance per turn, per tick or whatever. Should be fine. Final Ascension gets 5% more damage amp. Should be better. Giant and Mighty gets a 1% HP nerf, a little less. Going Long gets 5 more additional gold. Now remember, going long, you can't build interest, so 5 more gold is just 5 more gold, unlike
it's not
every other augment where 5 more
7,
gold could be 5 is 10 is 20 is whatever.
Okay.
So it is just 5 more gold.
Inflation across the board. What is this?
Hedge Fund, 2 more gold.
Yeah.
Invested plus, 9 more gold.
That's a
That
lot.
should make that augment more fun. Level Up gets a buff. Again, TFT inflation.
Yeah.
4 more XP to start with. Pumping up 3, 2 more % attack speed. And then probably one of the cooler changes if you want to make this augment playable. Tiniest Titan and Tiniest Titan Plus are now going to be 2 gold a turn instead of 1 gold a turn. Now, Tiniest Titan Plus was actually already okay, so it is going to get 7 less initial gold, but 2 gold a turn should make this a pretty fun prismatic.
More, thank you for the raid.
So, we have 5 new charms for you this patch. Again, every patch, some new charms to play with.
I think this is my favorite thing about charms. They can just like, if you have a problem with charms, like they can just remove certain things and put them in. I like this design space of it.
Mirror, 2 gold, get a 1-star copy of a random champ you fielded last combat.
Okay.
Kind of like a lesser duplicator you can't control.
That's really good.
We've seen this do some pretty cool stuff. I had 2 Ezreal and got a 3rd off of it. Cool. But it can also just give you a 1 cost, so a little random, but kind of fun.
I mean, the good players are pretty much going to use this to basically play, like, let's say you get dropped a 3 cost and you're trying to play like Vagar or Vex, something like that, one of the new ones like Hecarim that gets buffed. You just basically manipulate this and you get like a free copy of it. That could be very, very powerful.
Starless Shield. Next combat, grant a 300 health shield to your 1-star champions. Comfort Food, if you're lost streaking, this is a fun one. Gain 1 player health and then 2 more if you lose next combat. So plus 3 player health. Let's go. Scrappy, give 2 champions without items a temporary full item. And then the last one is Artifactinate, was probably the worst charm in the game by a significant margin, and you would buy it, and sometimes it would lose the fight for you.
That or Uncraftable Emblem was the worst, I think.
That one, and replaced it with a much simpler Conjure Artifact. 2 gold, gain a temporary artifact for 1 round. Now, yes, you can buy this, and yes, it can give you Corrupted Vamp Scepter. We saw it happen. It is what it is. But sometimes it gives you a Zanyas and wins you fights, so Conjure Artifact.
I think this is fine.
Then from there, we've got balance changes. All 3s cost 1 less gold.
Okay.
All 4s cost 1 less gold.
Okay.
Those get buffed. Cool.
I don't
Assembly was basically plus 4 gold, even if you didn't need the 1 cost, which is better than Dice Roll, which is weird. So now it's just plus 2 gold if you don't need any of the 1 cost. So a little bit of a nerf to Assembly there. Conjure Emblem. This is the augment that everyone wants to take and no one should take. So
we're
going to buff it. So now it'll be 12 gold. Should you take it now?
Nope.
Probably not.
Nope.
Will it be fun to take? Yeah. So if you're ahead, take it. Maybe
You're
you'll get a
on
hunter
PB.
emblem. That'll help you.
You can take it.
Help me. Moonlight Ritual. This was a very good one and creates some very fun situations where you get a, like a 4-star champion and stuff like that. Is getting nerfed 1 more gold. Still a great charm. Summon Dragon, the 12 gold dragon. We're nerfing its AD another 25%.
Wow.
Is it still OP? Probably.
Yep.
But now the dragon won't quite do as much damage. Great.
Yeah.
Ultra Ascension. This basically never procs, so now we're going to make it free. And if you can last to 22 seconds, your team will ascend. But at least it's free now.
Lasting 22 seconds.
Continuing
Superman
on. Ancient Ritual gives 10% more attack speed. Busy Bees. This is the one for your bees. 10%
Pretty
more
bad
attack
late
speed.
game.
Queen's Gambit. It's lowered by a gold. Quickening, lowered by a gold. Piece of Cake. This is my favorite one now. It used to only give 10 sugar stacks
25?
for 2 gold. Now it gives 25
What about the Pyro
sugar
one?
stacks. So,
Oh,
kind of worth
it's right
buying.
here.
Portal Hopping. This was 2 gold for a random portal champion. Now it's
Gates every
0
time.
gold for a random portal champion.
That's cool.
I think you'll take it.
Yep.
Pyromania
Free
gives
gold.
2 more cinders. Spitfire goes down to 1 gold. That's the dragon one that no one sees because no one ever plays dragon. And Supreme Arcana, this one also goes down and gets buffed as well. And then finally, we have the Xerath Charms. And Xerath Charms are supposed to be really good. And right now they're kind of good. They're okay.
Wait, what?
But we're going to make them
The
really
Xerath Charms are so
Chariot,
good.
this is going to get buffed. Only costs 2 less gold.
Oh.
Judgment, you'll get 4 more gold on win, 8 more XP on loss. The Lovers, that'll go down to 2 gold.
Wait, I need to see what
Sun,
some of these
that'll
are,
go down
actually.
to
Hold on a
32
sec.
gold if you can afford that. That's a big buff. And the World will also get buffed down to 36 gold. Again, these are meant to be Xerath buffs. The Sun, by the way, is the one that gives the support
and the
anvil and the
artifact.
artifact anvil.
That one's
and the
really
World
good.
is the one that gives 1 of every 4 cost.
The World gives you every 4 cost. Okay, hold on a second. Give me a sec here. The Moon, that's not the Moon. Increase your odds by 4% for 5 costs. Which one is Judgment? Oh, it's gold on win, EXP on lose. Okay. The Lovers, gain a 5 cost and 2-star 2 cost. Oh, they're buffing the Econ ones. Oh, I see.
And then we finally made it. 2 bug fixes. Bug fixes. Patience is a virtue tooltip reworded to more clearly indicate its effects trigger every round. Anger Issues no longer gives 2 Ginsu's Rage Blade when you make a mana item on a monolith champion. Krugs can no longer be summoned to the board after combat is resolved. Late Bloomer no longer summon units to the board if your bench is full. Glares at Leduc. Eternal Growth no longer grants permanent health to non-shapeshifters that start next to combat to shapeshifters.
Okay.
Yep. Mentorship VFX
this is
are
a big
removed
bug.
when a champion is benched.
Okay.
Needlessly large gems VFX no longer mistakenly play when the holder dies before 15 seconds.
Oh, I thought it did
Flexible
work.
and Trait Tracker are now actually mutually exclusive.
Yes.
Built Different and Trait Tracker are now mutually exclusive.
Excellent.
And we fixed a bug where the user would see a flash when scouting from House of Golden Rabbit to other arenas. So there you go. Pretty big patch. Should change a lot and enable a lot.
Patch.
Now, the thing to remember is next patch is 14.18. And as I've mentioned, this is a pretty big patch. 14.18 is, I've been codenaming it 12.25. We'll have a pretty substantial amount of changes. Some reworks to champions, adjustments to traits.
Oh, wow.
New things as well. Some system changes I can't talk about quite yet. The frying pan will be out. So it's a bigger patch next patch, so get ready for that. But in the meantime, the goal of this one should be more lines playable, more things playable, generally good times. So there you go. Patch 14.17. There it is. Yeah, should be fun.
Yeah.
All right.